And then sure enough, I blew my knee out. And then fast forward, the conversation after that, and this conversation is what I still talk about when I do talks, do podcasts, when people want the long form story. The analogy he said to me, he goes, here's the deal. He said, we wanted you. Okay. You were our number one back. You got hurt. He goes, it's like you go to a car dealership to buy a new car. You go to the dealership, it's a bunch of cars there, and you pick out the car you want, right? And you tell the dealership, I'll be back. This is the car I want. Well, you come back to pick up that car, and there's a dent in it. Doesn't matter how the dent got in there. You're not going to take that car. You're going to take the next model as close to that one you wanted that the dealership has.
All right, good morning or afternoon, depending on what side of the world you're on and what time it is in your part. But I am Preston Jackson, your host of the BCP Podcast. And as we keep the great guests coming, I have another one. This one, two-time All-American at UMass Athletic Hall of Fame inductee, Walter Payton Award finalist, and currently on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot. Welcome, Mr. Rene Ingoglia. How you doing, my man?
Preston, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor. I love that you gave me a call, and can't wait to chat with you today.
Oh, this is gonna be good, man. You got some good stuff behind you on your bookshelf, man. What is that? Is that a UMass helmet over your left shoulder?
Yeah, that's the helmet I played in. The ball. So when I graduated from UMass, I was the school and conference's all-time leading rusher and scorer. So That's what that ball is. Those records have since been broken. That's what they're for, baby, right? To get broken. Yeah. And then that's my the Hall of Fame plaque, if you will, that's in the UMass Hall of Fame. So, and then some others like you. I got a bunch of stuff on the walls.
Now, when what conference was UMass back when you played?
Yeah, the Yankee Conference. So, Yankee Conference was created in 1946. It actually ended in 1996, right after I played. So I'm one of two running backs that's on the all 50-year Yankee Conference team. And then it turned, so just so people know, it went from the Yankee Conference to the Atlantic 10. Then it went to the CAA. And it's still, the CAA changed their name from Colonial Athletic Association to Coastal Athletic Association. So that's what it is now. The crazy thing is, when I played in the Yankee Conference, there's only two teams, I think, Preston, that are still in that conference, like Rhode Island, Maine, and New Hampshire. Everyone else is left, and the majority have transitioned up to FBS football now. Okay,
so take me back before you are an All-American and a Hall of Fame inductee. Take me back to childhood. Where was young Rene from? What was the background?
Grew up in Rochester, New York. So those that don't know Rochester, it's right between Buffalo and Syracuse on Lake Ontario. And grew up, I'm going to be 53 this month, and we're in May now. So I pretty much grew up in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s as a young kid. And like most of us back then, when I was really young, 7, 8, 9 years old, we didn't have cable TV. We had 3 or 4 channels. That was it. Whatever sport it was, Preston, we played. So if it was football season, I played football. If it was basketball, I played basketball. Baseball, I played baseball. Loved it. Wanted to always, like most probably 9, 10-year-old kids, always wanted to be football player. Wanted to play in the NFL. And then for me, back then, because there was a lot of shows on TV when I was growing up, like SWAT and Adam 12, I always wanted to be a police officer. So those were kind of the two things as a kid I wanted to do. And then pretty much just kind of took that all the way through high school. I went to Bishop Kearney High School, went to a Catholic high school in Rochester, New York. Was pretty heavily recruited in high school. And again, like I told you guys, when I played in the late 80s in high school, if you had a good game on Friday night or Saturday and your name or picture was in the paper, right, the next day, that was a big deal.
Big deal.
Today, the world's changed. I mean, there's 24/7 recruiting. There's channels, it's just nuts. So I played in a different era. And here's a story that you didn't know that you'll like. So going to a Catholic high school, Notre Dame was where I wanted to go. Like that was kind of my dream college, right? And Had a really good high school career. And then my junior year, actually before that, my freshman year, I should back up. Lou Holtz was the head coach at Notre Dame. Skip Holtz, his son, was one of the assistants, and I've gone on to know Skip pretty well now. And I remember the booster club in Notre Dame, the Rochester chapter. The local paper had written an article, and when I was a freshman in high school, because I was playing varsity, saying that I wanted to go to Notre Dame. So they invited me to meet a bunch of players. And I remember the first Notre Dame player I met, because he was a Rochester great, was, I don't know if you'll remember this name, Cornelius Southall, Corny Southall. He was a starting safety. If you look him up from Notre Dame, was on that national championship team with Lou Holtz. So I got to meet him and just talk. Now, as the story would have it, I got hurt my senior year, and I got some great recruiting stories if you want to get into it down the line. But my first game of my senior year in high school, I blew my knee out. And again, so this is 1990. So you blow your ACL out in 1990, that was pretty much a death sentence. And I lost every scholarship. Forget Notre Dame. I lost every scholarship offer I had, and I was kind of just like a lost soul. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah. That is back up slightly to the front page, that sports section. And that was all the joy. You knew if your team won and you had a big game, and you may have got a glimpse before the game that one of the local news reporters was there, you couldn't wait till Saturday morning to go to that newspaper stand and put your quarter in and open that thing up. And if you got on the front page of the whole paper, that was probably the playoffs or state championship.
Yeah.
But you got all the way past the business section, past the comics, into that sports section, and you disregarded the whole rest of the newspaper. That became the use for the Windex, right? That's the glass cleaner. The rest of the newspaper become the glass cleaner, or if you had a puppy, now we're training a puppy with the paper, right?
Exactly.
But that front page, that sports section, was almost like gold. And in our locker room, in my high school, in our locker room, you better be done with that paper before you let somebody else read the paper, because you're not getting it back. That's good as gone. That is good as gone. So go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, Preston. So, so back in the late 80s, there was I forgot the name of it. It's escaping me, but there was basically like one recruiting publication. It was like a book, that you could get. And if your name was in that publication, that was like a big deal. Again, it feels like it was, light years away from what goes on today in recruiting.
So, your high school career, your high school career. In your high school career, you blow your knee out. Yep. However, you get a chance to get to UMass, right? They take a chance on you. You get to UMass, and now you become this stud. When did you find out, okay, I might be good in this league, to, I might be a stud in this league? When did that transition take off for you?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, you're into story. So I'll back up, and I'm going to give you the whole snippet here. You'll enjoy this. So my junior year in high school, we won our sectionals. We were our sectional champion. In the late 80s, early 90s, New York State didn't have state playoffs. There was no state playoffs. So when you won your sectional championship, and I was in Section 5 in Rochester, New York, your season was over. We won our sectional championship my junior year. I was even though we didn't have state playoffs, I was all state running back. And so I got recruited. Like I said, I was getting recruited pretty heavily as you could get recruited back then. Right. And Syracuse University, which was like right down the street, there's that old adage, and I know you've heard it, and anyone that follows college football, in the old days, if you were a school and you were recruited, you wanted to put a fence around your area. And some schools say 300 miles, 500 miles. But if there was a good recruit in that area, man, you got him. You did not lose him. And so Syracuse, the late, great Dick McPherson was the head coach there. And Syracuse was a national power in the early 90s in football and basketball. And so they really wanted me. So they essentially, my junior year, said, yep, we want you. I was like top of their list. And of course, this is before, now they're offering kids in like ninth grade. It's crazy, but this was like legit. So Syracuse really wanted me. Boston College recruited me hard. I I liked Boston College, again, Catholic school. I liked,
Yep.
but Syracuse was like, you're not going to BC. They're in our conference. So they were like, that's not
Right.
happening. Penn State recruited me. So I had a pretty good recruiting experience with Penn State. And then the outlier that came out of nowhere was Wisconsin.
Okay.
And so this has a Notre Dame tie in it too. So Barry Alvarez,
Yeah, I know Barry.
was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame.
Okay.
When he took the head coaching job at Wisconsin.
Oh, did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a great friend of mine. He's since passed away. His name was Burt Richardson. Burt was a year ahead of me, and Burt was just a kick-ass middle linebacker.
Okay.
And Iowa recruited him. So when I recruited him, obviously I was a year under. They recruited me as well.
Yep.
And then what happened was the coach that recruited Burt to Iowa and me to Iowa went to Wisconsin when Barry Alvarez got the job. So he just kept me recruited with Wisconsin. And now the knee injury happens. And then right before the knee injury, what I'm about to tell you, and it'll hit home when I tell you this. This was a very formative thing for me as, a 17, 18-year-old kid. Wisconsin essentially, in the recruiting battle, offered me a full scholarship as a junior in high school, which is pretty unheard of in 1989, 90. They just didn't do it. They said, we want you, we're going to offer you. And then they said, and I'll never forget the assistant coach that was at Iowa that went to Wisconsin that I talked to. His name was Bernie Wyatt. It's like his name's ingrained in my head. And I remember he said to me after my junior year, just don't get hurt. And, you don't really think, right? You don't really think about it. And then sure enough, I blew my knee out. And then fast forward, the conversation after that, and this conversation is what I still talk about when I do talks, do podcasts, when people want the long form story. The analogy he said to me, he goes, here's the deal. He said, we wanted you. Okay. You were our number one back. You got hurt. He goes, it's like you go to a car dealership to buy a new car. You go to the dealership, it's a bunch of cars there, and you pick out the car you want, right? And you tell the dealership, I'll be back. This is the car I want. Well, you come back to pick up that car, and there's a dent in it. Doesn't matter how the dent got in there. You're not going to take that car. You're going to take the next model as close to that one you wanted that the dealership has. That's recruiting. And he said, I was a car with a dent in it. So I lost my scholarship offer. They went to the next running back on the list. And so at 17, 18 years old, that's like eye-opening. Like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because even back then, even though we didn't get paid like they do today, it's still a business. For us, the scholarship was a big deal.
Absolutely.
Back then you're still talking $250,000, the food, everything. I mean, that's still a really big deal, which I think people kind of lose sight today with NIL revenue share. I mean, a scholarship's still a big deal. Listen, I got my oldest daughter's graduating this week from Lynn University in South Florida, played Division II soccer. She was on a half scholarship, but that's a private school. It's like $60,000 a year. So me and my wife still got her through. And when I pay those, she actually, right before this podcast, she said, Dad, we still owe $2,700. I'm like, all right, we got it. So when I look back at my scholarship days, it was a big deal. So I wish, and I know I diverged a little bit, I wish people gave more of a big deal to the scholarship today. But with that said, so I lost all my offers, even Syracuse, who recruited me heavily, came to my school and basically said, yeah, if it was a scope, if it was a meniscus, we'd still offer you. But I had what was called an unhappy triad. So I tore my ACL, my MCL, and my tendon was torn too. So all the scholarships are gone. So now get to your question with UMass. UMass never recruited me. UMass back then was 1AA, a very good 1AA team. But they just never recruited me. So I didn't know what I was going to do, Preston. So my high school coach at the time, Nick Tita, reached out to Fort Union Military Academy, which is still
Yeah,
going
yeah.
today.
Yep.
Matter of fact, they talked to my coach and they said, hey, because, got to remember, I got hurt late, right? I get hurt in the fall. I lose all those scholarship offers. And then the thing was, like, I didn't know if my knee was going to be ready to play that next fall. And back then, they really wanted you to rest and rehab. They didn't want you to play 6 months, 8 months later like they do today.
Okay.
And I knew, okay, if I go to Fort Union Military Academy, and there's no red shirt, I got to play. Right. And I know the coach at Fort Union said, hey, our roster's filled. Well, we sent them a VHS tape. That's what we had back then. And they called back and they looked at my VHS tape and they looked at, who was recruiting me. And they said, okay, we'll take him. He's got a roster spot. So I was going to go to Fort Union Military Academy. Turns out there was another running back on that roster that year, same age as me, a guy by the name of Eddie George. You might have heard of him. Won the Heisman.
I heard of him.
Played at Ohio State. He's now the head coach at Bowling Green. So that's what I was going to do. I was going to go to Fort Union Military Academy. I made my mind up. I said, all right, I'm going to suck it up. I just got to get ready. I got to play. University of Massachusetts, which I said didn't recruit me, happened to be in Rochester. And it's crazy how things happen. And I, people watching and listening, I don't know if you're spiritual, you believe in God or whatever it is, but I live my life where I think things happen for a reason. And I think there's a divine plan in our lives. I just do. And Preston, it was probably 2 weeks before letter of intent, which back then it's always it still is the first Wednesday in February, right? Yeah. It's still here today, but now there's a million other early signs. It's nuts. But that was a big deal to us back then. That was the one day.
Sure was.
2 weeks before letter of intent, and UMass was in Rochester looking at another running back. Okay. The kid ended up signing with UConn. Okay. That coach said, hey, yeah, he's going to sign with UConn, but he goes, you know what? There's a kid across town in Ingoglia, and this is what, I don't know if you know about him, but this is what happened to him. And so that UMass assistant coach got in his car and drove to my high school. No calls, no nothing. And I met with him, and he said, hey, I heard your story. I gave him, he knew nothing about me. I gave him a VHS tape. He must have, drove back to Massachusetts that night, but he was in a hotel. He must have watched the tape that night. Called his head coach, which was a guy by the name of Jim Reed, called me back that night and goes, hey, we just watched I watched your tape. We have one official visit left. And I hadn't been on any official visits because I blew, everyone's like, no, we're done.
Yeah.
We have one official visit left. Can you come up this weekend? I was like, yeah, why not, right? I got nothing else going on. Well, I take one official visit to UMass. Now, you'll love this part of it, too.
Okay.
I get there on Friday. I go up. My dad and my older brother come with me. And, you've been on official visits. So those that don't know, they'll give the player a host. So I was with a host for the weekend, and my dad and brother kind of did their thing, and they met with some coaches and stuff. But Jim Reed was the head coach, and I met him in his office on Friday. So here's the connection now. For those that don't know, the late, great Dick McPherson, who was at Syracuse, who wanted me. And, oh, by the way, that very next year, he became the New England Patriots head coach. He had a great career in the NFL. He used to coach at UMass in, the 70s. So Jim Reed, now the head coach at UMass, was a protege, was an assistant under Dick. So he loved Dick McPherson. So
that's what it sounds like. Yep.
So I sit in the office on Friday of this official visit, and I meet Coach Reed for the first time. And he says to me, listen, we heard your story. We know what happened to you. You got hurt. And he goes, we don't have any scholarships, but we wanted to bring you in for a visit. Your story was intriguing. What's happening? So enjoy the official visit, but I just want to let you know, we don't have any scholarships, but I wanted to bring you up anyway. So, I shake his hand, I'm kind of like, whatever. Like at this point, life has thrown all its crap at me. You know what I mean? I lost all these offers. I had my knee surgery. It was successful, but I'm recovering. I'm only, I had the surgery in November of 90, and now we're only a few months later. I'm in the rehab stage. So, but I said, yeah, I'm going to go to this official visit, and I'm going to have a good time. So what UMass does is I get a host, and we go to a basketball game, and, we have a good time. We go to eat and tour the facilities. And then on Sunday, before the visit ends, they would bring all the recruits, and there was probably maybe 10 of us, 10 or 12 of us up on this trip. They'd bring us this big restaurant where you have this big breakfast buffet. And you're sitting there at if your family's with you, and if not, you're alone. There might be an assistant coach with you. And the head coach would just go table to table and talk about the visit and whatever. And Coach Reed comes and he sits at my table. And he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, when you left my office Friday night, I called Coach McPherson and talked to him about you on the phone for 2 hours."
That's awesome.
He goes, "I want to offer you a full scholarship." So that, I mean, 2 days late, 2 days earlier, he's like, "We don't have any." He goes, off what he basically, Coach McPherson told him he was one of our number one guys. We were recruiting him. We were giving him a scholarship. If he comes back to half the player he was, it'll be worth it for you to give him a full ride. So he goes, "We're giving you a full ride." He goes, "And this is what we're going to do. You're going to come in next year. You're going to redshirt. You're not even going to think about playing. You're just going to keep rehabbing, and we'll move forward." And one offer, that's all I had. It only takes one. And that's how I got to UMass. And I did. I rehabbed that entire 91 year. And I know I'm long-winded, but
Okay.
I'll lead into to what your question was. So
you got it.
And you know this as well. So especially back then, all the star players, we all played two ways back then. That was just a normal. So, and all the best players on offense were you pretty much the running backs, quarterback, occasional receiver. And then you flipped over, you played DB, you played safety on defense.
Yep.
So getting ready for my first spring, right? So now it's going to be the first time I put pads on in, holy cow, like 17, 18 months. But my knee was great. I rehabbed. Coach Reed goes, "Yeah, we're pretty full at the running back room. We're probably going to move you to DB because that's what happens, right? All the great players, if there's not really a spot for them, they get because there's obviously more DB spots. You know that, and you want to put athletes out on defense." So he goes, "We're probably going to put you at DB," but he goes, "You know what? We're going to leave you at spring at running back this one spring." Like, okay. So I have a good spring, and it's funny because this conversation just came up because I was up at UMass for the spring game. I broke an 85-yard touchdown run in the spring game, and there was no mention of me going to defense again. So then I stayed at running back. And then that next year, 1992, second game of the year, asking about, my UMass career, I won the starting job and then started throughout. So in 90, and at the end of 92, I won Yankee Conference Rookie of the Year. So I had like 800 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns. And to your question, I didn't really think about, there was no thought in my mind at that time that, hey, I want to play pro. I want X, Y, and Z. I just wanted to contribute to the team and be a starter. That was really it, man. I just wanted to play. I had been through so much crap, and it was just, it was a good team. And we ended up that 82 year. We ended up only played 10 games that year. There was a screw up, but we were 8-2. Missed out on the 1AA playoffs, but it was a really good year. And so it was fun again. It was fun.
Yep. Well, so now you have a fantastic career at UMass, right? So now we're going to get to, in your own words, you had a cup of coffee in the league.
Yeah.
Well, everybody wishes they get to put on an NFL helmet and uniform, and I'm one of them. Didn't get that opportunity, but you did, right? Yeah. Where was your first stop? Where was your first stop when you got to NFL?
I got it back. Here's another fascinating story for you. So hold on.
Yeah. This is good.
As I said, I get done at UMass, and this is why I never assume in life. One, I think we can all agree, life isn't fair. Okay, for any of us. And once you come to that grips and understand you're going to get curveballs, life's not fair, you can react and attack life better, okay? So when I graduated from UMass, as I said, that football right there, all-time leading rusher and scorer in the school and in the conference. So in a million years, Preston, I never thought, at the very least, I wouldn't at least get a undrafted free agent contract and get into camp somewhere.
Okay.
I'm like, I'll get into camp somewhere. Maybe New England down the road. So I never even thought about it. I had an agent, and I was hoping I was going to get drafted. And this was in 95. This was when it was like the first year, I think ESPN2 was created and they started to put the draft on, but it wasn't fully on. I mean, it's nothing like it is today.
Nothing like it is. Okay.
Long story short, draft comes and goes. I don't get drafted. I don't even get signed. And I should back up. Like I said, I had an agent. And this agent was out of New York City and he kind of wooed me. And I went with him and I shouldn't have. But hindsight's 2020. I went to New York City. He wooed me and this and that and the other. I don't get drafted. The other thing that really hurt me, Preston, was he wasn't able to get me in the combine. Because if I would have gotten into the combine, my measurables would have been good. I was a tweener, Preston. So I was about 205 pounds at UMass. I played both tailback and fullback. Okay.
At UMass.
So I think when scouts saw me, they were like, he's too small to play fullback.
Right.
And if he's playing fullback, although they put him at tailback, he's too slow to play tailback. Well, I ended up running. I remember the Cleveland Browns came to run me.
Yeah.
And they shortly after that turned into the Baltimore Ravens. So it's the Baltimore Ravens today, but they were the Cleveland Browns. They came and gave me an individual workout, and they were one of the only schools or programs organizations back then. They used electronic timing. So I ran 4.43, 4.44 electronic for them at 205. I was plenty fast enough, but I fell through the cracks. I know when the draft ended, I got a couple calls, the Cowboys, I think the Lions called, but no one signed me. Didn't get into camp. And it's different today too, because you see with the draft just happened, what they do now with guys is, they might not give you an undrafted free agent contract right away, but they give a lot of guys rookie minicamp deals to get you. They didn't do that back then. You either got drafted or you got a contract to get into camp. If not, you were done. Don't get any of that. My agent says, don't worry about it. Sign a contract in Canada. You're going to go play in the Canadian Football League. So I'm like, okay, this is where it gets good. So I signed a contract with the Montreal Alouettes, still going, prize franchise in Canada. Signed with the Alouettes. My agent's like, go up there, ball out, and then, you get a shot in the NFL. So I'm like, I didn't have a choice. So I go to Montreal. You'll love this. Go to Montreal. I get there. We get it, much just like training camp here. I check in. We get in the dorm. The training camp was at like the University of Montreal. And we have meetings one night. Okay. We have meetings. No practice, just meetings. The next morning, we have a full practice. It's going to start 2 days. We have a full practice. Then we're going to have lunch and then go out for the afternoon. So we have that meeting the night before, meeting the coaches and everything. Go out, have one practice, morning practice. Okay. Come in, eat lunch. I'm like, all right, feeling good. Let me go get taped up. Let me go to my locker. Let me get out early, stretch out for that afternoon practice. Preston.
What happened?
I go to my locker to get dressed, and a dude's taking my helmet out of the locker.
Okay.
It doesn't even dawn on me. Preston, I was there one day. I'm like, hey, that's my helmet. I need to get dressed for practice. What are you doing? He goes, I hate when this happens. I'm still oblivious. Like I'm like, what? I go, that's my equipment. The general manager was a guy by the name of Jim Pop. I think he might still be there. He goes, oh, Jim hasn't talked to you yet? And I'm like, no, I need to get dressed for practice. He goes, you need to go see Jim. So now I'm walking down the hallway.
That don't sound good at all. Sound good at all.
I'm like, did they cut me already? So I go see Jim. And I'm like, Jim, what's going on? He goes, I got to let you go. I'm like, I've literally here one practice. Why did you bring me here? He's like, yeah, the numbers aren't working out. I got to let you go. So for those who don't know, and I think it's similar today, I don't think it's changed. Canadian football teams are only allowed to have 17 Americans on their roster. Otherwise, they don't want, and I get it.
Yeah.
So he's like, I got to let you go. So I was dumbfounded, man. I was just dumbfounded. So he gives me like my per diem for the day. I gas up my truck and I drive home from Montreal to Rochester, and getting back to my agent, I call another agent who didn't woo me, but that I should have went with, out of Boston. And I just called him. I told him what was going on. And I said, how do I fire my agent? He's like, just drop him a letter in the mail say, you're fired, certify it. Once you put it in the mail, he's fired. You don't have to talk to him. So that's what I did. And I said, hey, will you represent me? And this agent was awesome. He did. But I took it upon myself. And here's advice for people that I'll give that are watching this podcast. I don't care what profession it is. I don't care if it's broadcasting, you're doing a podcast, you work for a network, you want to be an analyst, play-by-play. I don't care what profession it is. No one is going to advocate for you
more
better
than you.
yourself. Yes.
Boom. Drop the mic, baby.
You have to bet on yourself, and you have to do it. So my agent, the first agent that I fired, told me, hey, NFL teams don't want to see highlight films. They don't want to see films you don't send anything out. So I never did any of that. So I get home to Rochester, and yeah, I hired a new agent, but I said, I'm gonna take ownership, right? I'm gonna do what I think's right.
Yep.
Go back to UMass, sat in their video room, and I made like a 45-minute video of like every good run I had, basically.
Okay.
Took that VHS tape, I sent it to every NFL team. Okay.
Okay.
Now, some NFL teams, blew me off. Never, I get it. Some sent me a letter back, which I appreciated. Said, hey, yeah, we know who you are. Thanks for sending this, but we're all set. We appreciate it. Okay.
Okay.
So, kind of a mixed bag. And this is where the story gets good. So my agent was working hard behind the scenes, and he said, hey, this is what I got going for you. He's like, we're going to be able to get you into the draft for NFL Europe. Okay. NFL Europe was pretty new, but remember the NFL owned it and ran it. So you kind of had to get like a wink and a nod from an NFL franchise saying, hey, yeah, we're endorsing this player, and we want to see him in NFL Europe so we can go recruit him. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to get on a team in NFL Europe. There were 6 teams. I said, that's great. So little time goes by. Obviously, the 96 season was done. I'm getting ready for 97 to go play in NFL Europe. And the Buffalo Bills, A.J. Smith was the director of pro personnel for the Bills in 1997. He went on to be the GM for the Chargers, had a great career. We end up setting up a phone call with him through my agent. And he says, just so you know, I know your agents worked hard to get you in the NFL Europe draft. He goes, we're gonna actually endorse you. So you're gonna go to NFL Europe. Okay. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm gonna get a place to play next year.
Right.
So it's crazy. So I'm on the phone with him. Remember, I told you I sent out those VHS tapes to all the teams. I think I had sent one to Buffalo like maybe 2 days earlier. So I said, hey, AJ, I just want to let you know, thank you very much. I'm very appreciative. I'm going to go bust my butt in Alpha Europe. But I said, I just want to let you know, I sent you a VHS tape like a day or two ago.
Did you get it?
Probably in a mailbox. I don't want you to think when you see it, this guy's an idiot. We just told him we're sending NFL Europe and he's putting stuff in the mail. Right. I sent it before we had this conversation. He's like, no worries. Okay. I get it.
Okay.
He must have like got it in his mailbox and looked at it that night.
Yeah.
Calls me back the next day and says, hey, we're going to bring you in for a workout. And he gives me the date. In like 21 days, we're going to bring you in for a workout. And you know, anyone that's watching this, a workout, if an NFL team says we're going to bring you in for a workout, it's a job interview. Okay?
Absolutely.
They're going to run you into 40. They're going to do a shuttle run. They're going to throw you some passes. They're going to interview you. They're going to do the whole 9 yards. So I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. So I get ready. So remember I told you I was kind of a tweener, right? Size-wise. Yeah. So I was under the impression like, okay, I need to get bigger. I need to be a fullback. Okay. So I basically 21 days later, I go into this workout for the Bills, and I'm like 217, Preston. I had never played that big. But at 217, I go in there for this workout, and I ran like, and a lot of people think like if you run a 4.6 is a fast 40. Okay, people,
right?
Media and the internet has just like ruined 40-yard dashes. They think if you don't run a 4.3 something, you're slow. Correct. In the NFL, when I played, and it's probably still very similar, if you were sub 4.6, you were good. you were good. So at 217 for the Bills, I ran like 4.52, 4.55 at 217. Okay. So a little slower than I ran before, but I was a lot bigger. So I have this workout. I catch passes, the whole 9 yards. And so this workout is now in, let me get my dates, make sure my dates are right. This is.
Okay, take your time.
This is 90. Okay, it's still 96. It's before the 90, but it's during the 96 season. Okay, so, and I remember when I did the workout because.
So 96, 97.
It was, I did this workout in like late November, early December of 96, right before 97 turns. Because as a matter of fact, I went in, I did this workout, Preston, on a Monday for the Bills. The Bills, or it might have even been a Tuesday. I'm sorry, it was a Tuesday. I did a workout because the Bills had played the Dolphins on Monday Night Football the night before. So obviously, okay, Tuesday's a day off, so the coaches were there. So the GM, so they were able to give me this workout. So I do this workout. It's a good workout. And they're like, yeah, thanks. Have a nice day. So obviously, you drive home. You're a little dejected.
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm like, okay, whatever. I did this workout. I'll get ready for NFL Europe. 30 days exactly from that workout, they called me back and said, hey, we're going to give you a 2-year contract. And that's how I got to the Buffalo Bills. So, yep. So I immediately, they gave me a 2-year deal. And, and so I had zero leverage. So I got no signing bonus, so zero signing bonus. But, the deal back, so I had a 2-year deal for 97 to 98. You'll appreciate this. So the deals were, if you made the 53-man roster, it was the minimum payment. So the minimum salary for a first-year player in 97 was $117,000. And then that second year of the 2-year deal, I think it went up to like 127 or something like that. So that was my contract. And so I'm immediately, and so just for context, a minimum contract now for a rookie is like $854,000. So a little better today than it was.
Jeez.
But yeah, it was 117. I think might have been 119. So, but here's the best part. So I move up to Buffalo right away. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hamburg, New York, which is right next to Orchard Park. $400 a month, and I worked out with Buffalo. And so when you work out and it's sanctioned by the organization, the NFL pays you. So I got paid like $400 a week to lift weights. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Again,
sounds like it.
It's all taking things in context. You know what I mean? I went from not getting drafted, not getting signed, getting cut in Canada. Now I'm signed with an NFL team. And when I say signed, people need to understand, just like today, everybody that's in camp has a contract. Doesn't mean you're going to make the team.
Correct.
You make the 53-man roster, and then you get your full salary. Practice squad, when I played, was 5 players. Now it's a lot different. They can keep, like, COVID changed that. They can keep 15. You can keep veterans, because back when I played, you could only stay on practice squad 2 years, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, but I also knew that was kind of my mindset going there. Like, okay, if I don't make the 53-man, I know I can make the practice squad, because they had a running back on practice squad that his time was up. So he had to leave. Okay. So I'm like, okay. And just so people know, practice squad, you get paid per week. It was, in 97, it was $3,300 or $3,400 a week. So, you times that by 17 weeks, it's still pretty good money.
You ain't in bad shape at all.
No, especially in the late 90s, it was really good money. Right. So I moved to Buffalo, and then the story gets even more interesting. So listen, cut me off if you want to jump in with anything, because I'm long. I have a good camp in 97, real good camp. Score a touchdown in a preseason game against the Eagles. We go to Denver, Mile High. I'm the leading receiver, caught a bunch of passes out of the backfield. So I'm feeling good. I'm having a good camp. Marv Levy, the great Marv Levy, was still the head coach.
Okay.
At the time, we had training camp at Fredonia State is where they had it. It's a state college about an hour and a half from Buffalo.
Okay.
And so, we break camp, and you go back to Buffalo probably about a week before the final cuts. And the nice thing about
Right.
Buffalo is, and Marv Levy is, he kept people in camp until the NFL said, okay, this is the cut day. Like today, you'll see NFL teams again cut guys after a day or 2 days, and they get no chance. Marv was really big on keeping people there until the NFL said, all right, you got to cut your roster down to give people chances, which I greatly appreciated. So we break camp from Fredonia. So when you break camp and you go back to your facility, obviously you're not in the main locker room. Only people in the main locker room are people that have made the team, and then high draft picks who they know they're not going to cut have a locker.
Right.
Everybody else, like there's maybe like 30 of us, we're in the visitor locker room.
Okay.
We have a game. You'll like this. So we play on Sunday night on NBC. It was the Bills versus Green Bay. It's called the American Bowl. We played it in Toronto, which obviously is right around the corner from Buffalo. That Monday, okay, was the big cut day. Big cut day. So we go to Buffalo, or we go to Toronto. We're playing this game, Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. It's like third down, and I'm at running back, and I run a little option route, got a linebacker. I kind of beat him, come across the middle, drop the ball. Ball gets thrown again, drop the ball. So now I'm pissed, right? I dropped the ball. I run off the field, okay? That's the least of my worries, what I did.
Okay, what happened?
I'm on the sideline bitching that I dropped the ball, okay? I look over at the special teams coach, and I see him doing, I see him counting the players out there on punt, because it was just, I dropped it out there down. Punt's out there. You know where this is going? I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be on punt.
Oh no.
They had to call a timeout. Now I burn a timeout. I drop a pass on third down, and the team has to call a timeout, and I get bitched out by Bruce DeHaven, the special teams coach, and rightfully so. And so here's another lesson for you. If you're an athlete, young athlete watching this, and this as a DB, you have to be able to flush things in sports.
Yeah.
If you fumble a ball, if you get beat by a receiver, if you're playing basketball and a guy beats you for a dunk, forget it. Move to the next play, or else it's going to hurt you. You gotta, in sports, you gotta let things go, man. So I didn't. So now, but as you could imagine, the game ends, and I drive back to Buffalo, and my parents, I'm like, tomorrow's like the big cut day. I'm like, I'm screwed. So,
yeah, you might be.
So I'm in. So here's the other thing too. So a lot of people might have heard what the heck? I want to say there's a name for the guy that goes around that actually brings the people to get cut. I want to say the Reaper.
Okay.
Might have been
pink slip guy. The pink slip guy. Yeah.
So basically, this is what happened. We're all in. It's Monday morning now. We're all in the visitor locker room, right? Because you don't know if you're going to make the team or not. It's the weirdest thing ever. Position meetings are starting, right?
Yeah.
But you don't go to the meetings because you don't know if you made the team or not.
Is that purposely? Is like they don't let you go in the meetings, or you just don't go? Okay. All right.
A little of both. So
okay.
Because what happens is the cutting process starts probably an hour before meetings, but it takes that long because what happens is you're all in this visiting locker room, okay? The Reaper comes in, and so for Buffalo, it was an assistant trainer.
Okay.
He comes in, and all your eyes are glued to him. He walks in the door, and you're all just sitting there. It's real quiet because everyone knows what the hell's going on. And he's like, Jim, coach needs to see you. So everyone else is like, oh, you take a deep breath because it's not you. And then poor Jim gets up, walks out, and goes sees coach. And you're like, oh, Jim's cut. And Preston, I mean, coach might talk to him. So this might take 10 or 15 minutes. And then he comes back in. And then he's like, hey, Dave, coach needs to see you. And also he's like, grab your playbook. Coach needs to see you because everything's iPads today, but before, it was legit big playbooks.
Got to turn the playbooks in.
All your notes, coach needs to see you. And you're like, oh, it wasn't me. But you're like, and so now, again, so this is going on. So now meetings are about to start, but you're like, we're not going to meetings because my ass ain't getting pulled out of a meeting, getting cut. That's even worse. And so, this goes on. And then sure enough, he's like, Rene, coach needs to see us. So, I mean, it does. It brings you to tears. I mean, it legit does. You're just like, oh, man, tear comes in your eyes. But this is where it gets interesting. So I go in to see Coach Levy. And so my name's Rene, as you can see. And but a lot of people pronounce it Rene. And he always called me Rene. And so I go into the office, and this was kind of cool. He goes, Rene, come in. He goes, I want to let you know you're not getting cut because of your game yesterday. Because I told you what happened in the game. So that made me feel better. Because you're not getting cut because of the game. He's like, you had a great camp. It was a bad game, bad couple plays. We're not letting you go because of that game. I don't want you to think that. He goes, it's just a numbers issue right here. But he goes, in 5 days, we have to announce our final 53-man and our practice squad. He said, we're most likely going to assign you to our practice squad. He goes, I can't guarantee it, but I'm 99% sure I'm going to bring you back to practice squad. And I knew, Preston, I had done enough where I was going to get, as a player, I go, I'm going to get signed to the practice squad. So he's like, just go home for the next couple of days, relax with your family, unwind, and then, we're going to call you in a couple of days. So this is so this is a cool thing about the NFL. All the NFL teams, it's all on the same schedule, same schedule. So this is happening across the league with every team.
Okay.
All the teams, pro personnel departments see who gets cut, who gets let go. So that night on Monday, it was the Redskins back then as Commanders. Now the Redskins call me and they say, hey, we want to bring you in for a workout. We might have an opening on our roster. So I'm like, you just get done with like a 6-week NFL camp. You're sore and you're like, I got to go run 40s again. But I did. I got on a plane. I went to Asheville, Virginia. They had brought in like 5 other running backs like me that had just got cut. The running back coach is a guy by the name of Bobby Jackson. I run 40-yard dash. I catch a bunch of passes, run some routes, and knocked it out of the park, man. I had a great workout. So go back in. I'm in the shower, and their trainer comes in the shower. There's a couple of us showering, and so this is like Wednesday now. Like I get cut from the Bills on Monday, and actually no, I think it was Tuesday. I think I went home. I mean, I think it was really the next day, and the trainer comes in, and Norv Turner was the head coach of the Redskins that year. And he says, hey, Norv wants to see you in his office. So I'm like, okay. I go out of the shower. I go up to the office. He's like, hey, we want to sign you to a contract. We want to sign you to our practice squad. I was like, okay, awesome. I said, can I at least call back Buffalo and let them know and, see if they'll match it or whatever. So I call back Buffalo, and they kind of were like dragging their feet like, oh, damn. So I signed with the Redskins, man. Wasn't in camp at all. Basically flew back home, got my stuff, drove down to Washington, and then week 1 of the season, I'm with the Redskins. It was crazy.
Well, that's congratulations. That's a lot of weaving, a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff there.
Norv Turner, a legend. A lot of stuff going on, man. But it worked out. All right. So now you said something in your childhood. I wanted to be a football player, and I was really attracted to these police officer type TV shows.
Yep.
All right. When did you decide to join the police force?
Yeah. Great question. So from Washington, long story short, the only way you can get off a practice squad is that another NFL team has to sign you to their 53-man roster. You can't go from practice squad to practice squad. That still holds true today. Okay. Halfway through that season, Buffalo had an injury. They called down to Washington. That's how I got back to Buffalo. They signed me on their 53-man. So all of 1997, I was on the 53-man for the Buffalo Bills. Never got to play in a regular season game, which kind of sucks, but played a bunch of preseason. 98, back with the Bills, same exact thing, on and off practice squad. Finished 98. The Bills don't renew my contract. I go to NFL Europe ultimately in 99, but when I went to NFL Europe in 99, for me, I knew it was kind of like a paid vacation because I was going to get into law enforcement. So in 99, I had actively started looking. I wanted to be a federal agent. Okay. So I was actively looking at U.S. Marshal Service, DEA, not really FBI. I was really Marshals and DEA were the two agencies. And so I go to NFL Europe. Now, don't get me wrong. If an NFL team said, hey, we're going to give you a contract, I would have went back to the NFL. But I kind of knew, to your question, I kind of knew it was over. And so I go to NFL Europe. Ended up being great. I played for the Frankfurt Galaxy. Jake Delhomme ended up being my quarterback, who went on to have a great NFL career playing the Super Bowl. We ended up winning the World Bowl. I scored a touchdown in the last game I ever played. Got a nice ring. So when I came back that year in July, it's kind of funny. So this was pre 9/11. Okay, so the NFL, the federal agencies were kind of on a hiring freeze, and the DEA is who I ended up zeroing in on, and I was close with the DEA, and it was just really weird because of their hiring freeze. I just couldn't. They wouldn't hire me, so I was like, damn it. Well, a buddy of mine, who was a quarterback at UMass, who was still on the roster, was from Orlando, Florida. I happened to be when he was a senior in high school, and he came up and took his official visit. I was his host. You know, he knew me. He said, "Listen, I came back because the World Bowl, the NFL Europe was in the spring. World Bowl was like July 1st, so it's like a week later. I'm in Boston hanging out with some friends, and he was one of them. And he's like, listen, he's like, I know you wanted to get into law enforcement. The federal agency thing hasn't worked out right now, but he's like, my stepmom is a detective with the Orlando Police Department in Florida. If you want to go the local route, they're hiring like crazy right now. If you have a 4-year degree, especially if you're a former athlete, they're hiring. So, total Murphy's Law. I'm like, I never thought about Orlando. And then my whole mindset was, okay, let me go down there, get some experience, and then I'll transition into federal agencies, because the feds had said, yeah, that's a really good way in too. So sure enough, I apply. They literally end up hiring me like 3 months later. And then I go through the process, the testing and all that. And I got hired by the Orlando Police Department. So I moved in the end of 99 to Orlando and went through the academy and that's how I became a police officer.
So in the 99, you just sparked I'm just thinking, was Shaq and Penny still there in the 99? Or no, they were gone?
Yeah, in the beginning of my career down here, Orlando basketball was like the Magic were huge. Shaq was here, Penny was here.
Okay.
They had playoff runs. Yeah, absolutely. That was huge when I got down here.
Yeah, I thought so. I know Shaq came in, I think 92 or 93.
Yeah.
And then Penny a year after that. So I'm trying to line that timeline up.
Yeah.
So what is one? I always tell folks who aren't from Florida, they see Orlando, they see Disney and everything on TV, and I said, listen, Orlando's like any other big city.
Yeah.
You got your tourist spots, but then if you go off the beaten trail, like you're gonna be in some spots that you aren't very comfortable being in.
Yep.
Right? It's like any other big city. You got your, let's just call it, for lack of a better term, you got your nice spots that feel very inviting. Then you got your other spots that don't feel too inviting. Yep. What about Orlando that people not know?
Yeah, well, so that's actually another great question, Preston. So when I moved here, right, in 99, 2000, the one thing that I sensed from people I met was everybody was from somewhere else, right? There was a lot of transplants here. Because Orlando started as a small town, and then once Disney came on, it blew up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blew up.
And so everyone was kind of coming here. So you didn't, like, again, I'm from Rochester, New York, so you didn't have that like hometown feel.
Right.
Through my time, and I'm still here, 25, 26 years later, all of us people that were transplants here put our roots here, and we had kids. So now all our kids, which are in college now, Orlando is home. So it has that home feel to them. So we kind of developed that from the 2000s to today. Obviously, Florida, the two things that stand out, right, if you're thinking of moving here, is the weather. Now, being from Western New York, I never ever thought I would bitch about the heat. But I mean, when we get into the summer, we'll have like 62 straight days of like 95 plus degrees. But I always tell people this, Preston, you don't have to shovel the heat. Just get in the AC and get away from it. So the winters are great and the weather's great here. And then obviously there's no state income tax in Florida. So that's always, that's very appealing. And so I love Florida. It's my home now. You know, a lot of my family have moved here or have a home in New York and or here. So I love it. But, you know, to your other point too, being a police officer, you know, when I started out, you know, the majority of my career, I was a detective, a violent crimes detective. But in the beginning, I rode in a police car. I mean, that's how you learn. You're a patrol officer.
Yeah.
I worked midnight patrols in a lot of those neighborhoods you talked about. And I tell people all the time, and you already hit on it, I don't care what city in the nation you're in.
Yep.
There's a tough area where I could blindfold you and I could pluck you in South Bend, Indiana. I could pluck you in those areas anywhere. And you wouldn't know what city you're in because they're all similar. Okay. And every city has it. It's funny because when I first came on in the late 90s, remember the episode, the show Cops was like a huge hit. That was like one of the first like big time reality shows. And Cops always wanted to come to Orlando. The city and Disney would not allow that. Because what did Cops do? It kind of showed the bad side of your city, what's going on.
Correct.
And they're like, you can't let people know this stuff goes on in Orlando. We got to keep it like
hell no
Disney and Universal friendly. But every city fights crime in areas. It's just not, you know, no city's immune from it.
Dude, you see Notre Dame on TV, you see the Golden Dome and the university, it looks fabulous. You go 2 lights off campus, south, you're like, oh shit. I'm in it. Yeah. You're in it. Hey, so interesting question. So here you go. How many different patrol uniforms do you or did you have in your early days?
I mean, they gave us 5 to start with, but then you could get them. So I ripped a couple because I was really athletic when I was first a cop. So I got in a lot of football suits. I ran. I jumped a lot of fences. I probably throughout my career, I probably ended up with like 20 different uniforms. And then, so not only, you know, your regular uniform, but I ended up being a tactical officer. So it's more of a tactical gear. But with that said, the last 12 years of my career, all detectives. So I wore shirt and tie to work. But yeah, a lot of uniforms. I still have them. They're actually in a closet in this office. They're sitting in there.
Dude, now here goes a kind of a controversial question, but it's real general. Do you see actions of like when you see police officers do certain things and your first reaction is like, why?
Yeah.
And how did you go there? So how did you skip step B so quickly? And and what form did you think that was your last resort? Do you ever get that? Because you're in it, right? So you've been there, you're trained for certain events to happen, but you're also human. You're also human at the same time now. But your training, for the most part, probably takes over in certain cases. That's the whole reason why you're training. And then for us who are not in that environment where your nerves aren't jumping and you're not put in life or die situations so quickly and you don't have to react in a split second, when you see stuff by your counterparts, by your peers, do you sometimes like, oh, why?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so I did a 2-year stint in internal affairs too. So I investigated officers, and police officers are their own worst enemy. And you're like, that was stupid. And so I'll bring it full circle here.
Yeah.
Football to me law enforcement to me, very similar to football and sports in general. When you go to a police department, I don't care if it's sheriff's office, local PD, I don't care, FBI, you end up working in a unit, a group, a squad, okay? That's a team, okay? That's a team. Yeah. You depend on each other. Just like when, you know, you're on defense and you're playing corner and the safety effed up and was supposed to roll over and he didn't. He came up and took flat and you're looking at him like, what the hell? Why did you do? Like, he screwed up.
Right.
Cops screw up too. And I tell people all the time, there's a big difference when you watch these videos. Police officers are human beings, to your point.
Yep.
We're gonna screw up. You're gonna screw up. As long as it was a legit mistake and you can overcome it and be trained, that's normal. When you cross the line and do something egregious or illegal, that's where there's a problem. And does that happen in law enforcement? Of course it does. It doesn't happen nearly as much as people think it does. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked up the number. There's like I don't even know the number. It's a huge number of law enforcement officers in this country. Just think about how many contacts they have with people each and every day. And you see a minute fraction on because of social media things. But back to your point, we are no, and I tell people this all the time. Hey, even in my travels now with the ESPN and so forth, people find out I was a police officer. So everyone has a cop story. They want to say, hey, I got pulled over and this would happen. So people will tell me a story and I'll say, hey, what do you do for a living? They'll say, I work in a dentist office. I go, all right.
Mm-hmm.
You work with any jerks? Anyone rub you the wrong way? I don't care what profession it is. Oh yeah, so-and-so's kind of a jerk.
Yep.
Well, cops are the same way, man. They're normal people. I work with cops who would give their own mom a ticket. I'm not like that, but that's how they are. And I said, so you run into that, right? In law enforcement is a microcosm of society. But that is why I love it when law enforcement agencies put a push out to recruit athletes, because I just think it's a no-brainer. And for me too, like I always wanted to be a cop, but when I got done playing, I'm thinking like, okay, what the hell can I do that's kind of energetic and fun? No, it's dangerous too, but like, you got to work out to be, there's a lot of stuff you need to do to be a good cop. Okay.
Right.
And working out's one of them. And so I love it when they have, when recruiting departments go, especially football players. And to your other point, the tough areas that we know, that we played with a lot of people that grew up in tough areas that really know the ins and outs. I love it when those guys and girls become cops, and then they go back and patrol those areas, because there's just that sense of, okay, there's that respect when you say to someone, bro, I grew up 2 blocks from here. I know exactly what you're saying to me, right? Well, you take me, a middle-class white guy from suburbia, and you put us in certain areas. A guy like me, I earned my respect in those areas by how I treated people, and they got to know me. A lot of cops, they don't have the ability to do that, right?
Gotcha.
And that's where I think when you bring that diversity into law enforcement, and people go back to their neighborhoods, it's almost akin to Preston, where you got a DB coach that was an All-American at Notre Dame, and then he went on and played 9 years in the NFL. You're probably going to listen to him a little bit more in your meeting room than, say, a guy that was maybe a good coach. It's a good coach, good dude, but he didn't do it. He didn't play it.
Right.
I've always said that, because there's a lot of coaches out there that came up through like the intern ranks and never were really players. And it doesn't mean they're bad coaches. There's a lot of great coaches that never played.
Yep.
There's always something a little different, respect-wise, about when a coach tells you to do something when he did this too. He's not going to ask me to do something that he didn't do himself. And then so law enforcement, again, there's a lot of parallels to law enforcement to athletics, particularly football.
Well, that's part of your life story. And as we're going down this career path, you kind of stumble into calling games.
Yeah.
You start becoming a color commentator and the voice of a network. Take me down that path and how you became law enforcement, or not, excuse me, not became, but how you walked the streets of Orlando, patrolled the streets of Orlando, at the same time doubled as a game commentator.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, not simple, but I missed football, right?
Okay.
So in 2006 and 7, I had been with the police department 7 years, and I missed football. And, at this point now, Preston, I'm married, okay? I have 2 young daughters, and my wife's like, go help out coach. And I did. I helped out like Pop Warner, high school coaching, and it wasn't filling that need, that void. I wanted something more.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, I can't really get into college coaching because I have a law enforcement career. I just said I'm married with kids. I have responsibilities. And so in 2007, I got inducted into the UMass Athletics Hall of Fame.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Go up there. The ceremony's on a Friday. It's during the fall. There's a football game on Saturday. So the induction's on a Friday. You get up, and give a nice speech, and then go to the football game on Saturday. And the radio team, the UMass Sports Network, said, hey, will you come on and be our halftime guest? I'm like, okay, yeah, absolutely. And I think I might have told you this off air. It was the first time I'd ever put headphones on.
Okay.
It's radio, but we're talking. It's an extended interview. We do like a 5-minute interview, and I get done, and I'm like, man, I really enjoyed talking about football. And now the light bulb goes off in my head. Bing. And I said, broadcasting. I'd love to maybe get into broadcasting. That's something that maybe I can do while my police career is going on. So now I get back to Orlando, and right at this time too, I'm a young detective. I'm a new detective. So I start scouring the internet and just like, okay, who do I know? How can I get into broadcasting? And I run into a name of a guy who works at ESPN, and he was a kind of a boss back then. And I send him a cold email. Turns out he was, I'll just say it. So this guy's name was Burke Magnus. Okay. At the time, he was kind of the boss of ESPNU, the network ESPNU, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay.
Okay.
ESPNU, the network, still going, but there's no studio. There used to be a lot of studio shows. It's no longer. It's turned in. It's where SEC Networks is now. Okay, they turned ESPNU studios into SEC Network. Okay, in Charlotte.
Okay.
But at the time, he was running ESPNU, and when I looked at his bio and researched him, I'm gonna lost internet there. Hopefully, we're back. At the time, he was running ESPN.
I hear you.
I looked at his bio, and he had gotten his master's degree from UMass when I was playing football, when I was an undergrad. So I said, you know what? Maybe he'll remember me, right? So I sent him a cold email. Listen, I was a young detective, but I figured out his email was probably burke.magnus@espn.com. It was. He got the email. And he said, yeah, I'd love to try to help you, right? So he has one of his coordinating producers reach out to me and said, hey, yeah, boss said to reach out to you. Can you send me your demo? I'm like, don't have a demo. Didn't know if I could audition. Didn't know how the process worked. He goes, nah. He goes, you need a demo. He said, I don't care if it's high school, Pop Warner. It doesn't matter. You just need to get on tape. You got to get reps. I need a demo tape.
Okay.
I was a little dejected. And I said, okay, I'll go out there and get a demo for you. So fast forward to today for people. This is advice for people because I get hit up all the time about broadcasting. And I will say this, because Burke Magnus answered me, I never blow people off. I have strangers all the time, Preston, that DM me and ask. Now, listen, I may not be able to help you, but I'll give you the best advice I can. I will never blow you off. And so right now, what I needed to do back then, that's the advice I give people all the time. Matter of fact, I just talked to a player that I met at Sam Houston State that wants to get in there. And I told him reps. And podcasts are reps, studio shows, reps, play-by-play, and get reps, all sports. That's my advice to people. Just do it. And
just do it.
Come. So going back to me, a year goes by, and then basically I call up to UMass and I say, hey, I want to get into broadcasting. Can I join the UMass Sports Network? They're like, absolutely. They're like, but we can't afford to fly you up from Orlando. I said, that's okay. I'll pay. I made the decision with my wife. Getting back to what we talked about earlier, I bet on myself. I had a bunch of people
Yep.
say, man, that's crazy. Don't do that. So basically what happened was I worked as a detective Monday through Friday. Okay. Every Friday night, Southwest Airlines was the cheapest flight. Had a flight, direct flight at 8:30 from Orlando to Manchester, New Hampshire. Okay. Direct.
Wow.
Manchester, New Hampshire to Amherst, Massachusetts was like an hour and a half drive. I would pay my own flight. I'd rent my own car. I would drive to Amherst. I get there about midnight, 12:30 in the morning. A good buddy of mine who worked at UMass, who was a former player, Dan Markowski, lived there. I would get there 12:30. We'd have a soda pop, shoot the breeze. I'd sleep in his basement, get up. I would call the game on Saturday, fly home Sunday, and did it all season. And if it was an away game, I would rendezvous. But I paid my own way. UMass ended up paying me. They paid me $100 a game. And this is now, again, I missed the season. So this was the 09 season, my first year of broadcasting. 09. They paid me $100 a game. It probably cost me about $600 or $700 with the flights and the rental car. But again, I was betting on myself. Okay.
That's right.
Go through that year, max out a credit card, which I don't. if you can do it without maxing out a credit card, don't. But I maxed out a credit card. But at the end of the year, Preston, I had a demo. It was radio, but it was a demo. Correct. And I had stayed in touch with Burke Magnus, because now we're a couple years, right, from my first contact with him. He's up now in Bristol, Connecticut, working, okay? And he says, okay, this is who I want you to send this demo to. And it was my first boss ever at ESPN. He's not there anymore because if you watch, ESPN has, over the years, has done a ton of cuts, but his name was Stas Hall. And I got him this demo, and he looked at it. He's like, yeah, great. Thanks for sending it. And so I've learned a lot about the business because, believe it or not, this year for me with ESPN, it's going to be my 17th year. I tell people, I'm like the king of flying under the radar, right? Wow. No one quite recognizes me. They think they've seen one of my games, and everyone thinks I look like John Cena, so I get a lot of this on the road. But yeah, king of under the radar. So you'll like this story too. So I sent him that demo. Now, I was trying to get hired basically by anybody, right? But UMass was like, hey, you can come back here in 2010. And long story short, Stas Hall, it gets close to the 2010 season. So I send him an email, and this is advice I give people all the time too. Again, I don't care what business you're in, but especially broadcasting. There's a fine line between being persistent and a pain in the ass. I can't tell you where that line is. You need to find it. But I will tell you, if you go over it and become a pain in the ass, you're going to screw yourself. So you got to find that line. So I had sent Stas an email maybe 6 weeks before the 2010 season started. And I said, listen, I said, hey, thanks for looking at my demo. But I'm guessing you're not getting hired this year. I'm going to go back and work for the UMass Sports Network on radio. Hopefully you can reevaluate me next year. Sends me an email back and says, may have something for you week 1 and later in September. So no, I'm sitting at my desk like this. Again, I'm a detective.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, holy cow. Because in my wildest dreams, I never thought my first opportunity would be with ESPN. Never thought that.
Right.
And back then, ESPN had, now it's ESPN Plus, which is like, exactly, when you go on ESPN Plus, it's just like watching your TV. Back then, it was ESPN 360, ESPN 3. It's like, you tried to watch a game and it froze for like 4 minutes. And it was like, it's just the beginning of them really putting content on the internet. But it was a great place to start. And they ended up giving me 3 games in 2010. The last game I did was, I'll tell you, the first game I did Temple in Villanova. I'll never forget that. Second game I did was Western Kentucky, USF, South Florida. And then the third game I did in like November, which blew my mind, it was Boston College, Maryland. Maryland was still in the ACC back then. And it was a conference game, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, I'm doing an ACC conference game. This is incredible.
Let's go.
3 games, and then 0 feedback. And I learned this from the business. No news is good news. I got 0. And everyone said, if you're not getting any feedback, that's good. And then they ended up signing me again. And that next year, which was 2011, I did 11 games for them.
Wow.
And then in 2012, I started doing linear games on TV. And that's when they still had syndicated games. There was still like Big East Network. And so there was still syndication. So I did a lot of games on TV. And then in 2013, they signed me to another deal where I was the analyst for the National High School Game of the Week. And it's funny because my partner was a guy by Adam Amin, and Adam Amin's a star now. He's over at Fox, and he's the TV voice of the Chicago Bulls. He's like the number two or three NFL team on Fox. And it's funny because my daughters always give me crap. They're like, how come Adam's like a superstar now and you're still, plugging along at ESPN? I'm like, easy, girls. I'm still working. Okay?
Easy. Well, that's pretty dope, man. I've got one last question, so we can get out of here. NFL draft just happened, and depending on when this drops, it doesn't matter because my questions they're gonna be fine for whenever we show this. But what was one glaring gem like, yo, this kid is in the right spot. This kid was a great draft pick. He's gonna fall in the right spot. I really foresee him being great. And then on the other side, what pick would you like? Yo, that was whack. That was a total. I don't know where that came from.
A couple. Okay. We all know the Shedeur Sanders issue. Okay.
Yep.
I think I'll give you my 2 cents since everybody is. I think Preston, from watching him play, very talented player. Okay. And I saw him earlier because he was an Under Armour All-American. They do their practices down here. That's an ESPN event. So when he was an Under Armour All-American, I was there. I saw him that whole week. I think he probably realistically from the NFL scouts probably had a second round grade. That's my thought. Late first into the second round.
Okay.
I don't think the NFL scouts had him as, that top 5 pick that his dad said. And listen, his dad should say that. I get it.
All right.
Okay. But I just don't think they had him as that top 5 franchise-changing guy. And then, so they had him a little later. And then I just think where it's well documented, and we kind of talked about the draft process here. It's just playing's just part of it. When you go meet and you interview, what you do off the field, how you act, and it all plays a part, right? When you sit down with a coach and he says, "Get on the whiteboard," and I want you to diagram that. If you're not ready to do that speaks volumes. And there's a lot. I wasn't there. There's a lot of reports what he did and didn't do, but that all played into it. And I think because of that played into it. Once you got to the second, they were like, "Well, we're going to go for value on our team, and he'll drop and we'll grab." Now, he's a better talent than 5th round draft pick. We all know that,
right?
But it steamrolled on him, okay, and he got to the 5th round. So, but with that said, he's going to be somewhere and he's going to get a chance now, right? And that's all you could ask for. You asked about draft picks. The fact that they took Dylan Gabriel, who I've seen in person a bunch, in the 3rd round, that I think the Browns were the only team that had Dylan Gabriel with a 3rd round grade. I think everyone had him like a 4th or a 5th. So they take him in the 3rd, but then they come back and take Shedeur in the 5th, which is crazy to me. But I look at Dylan because Dylan started here in Orlando at UCF, so I saw him a bunch. And he was kind of in this NIL world where he made money, right? He left UCF. He went to Oklahoma, made a nice payday. Yep. Had to leave Oklahoma because they promised their next guy a bunch of money, but he goes to Oregon, has a nice career, makes some money in Oregon. Now he's a 3rd round pick. I looked it up. That spot where he went, he's going to get about a $1.4 million bonus. So no matter what happens, he puts that money in his bank account. So
pocket.
Good for Dylan Gabriel, but that pick surprised me. And then a couple good ones. I saw Ashton Genty last year in person. So it's not a surprise he went where he went to Las Vegas. I do think he's going to get enough carries where he's going to be the front runner to be the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. I really do.
Okay.
I'll give you another running back who I saw a bunch in his career. that probably people were a little surprised. Denver took him in the third round. I think it was the third. R.J. Harvey, the running back for UCF.
Yeah, from UCF. Yep.
Phenomenal. Yep. And I bring up Genty because very similar builds. And I think it's the best running back build. It's like that 5'8", 5'9", good balance, low center of gravity, big thighs, big hips, can move. They both run very similar. I think R.J. Harvey, that was a great pick for the Broncos, and I think he's going to be one that you're like, holy cow, we got this guy in the third round. I think he's going to have a nice career.
Very similar, both of those backs. But actually, R.J. Harvey. R.J. Harvey reminds me. Remember Doug Martin for the Bucks?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's kind of that build. That kind of like almost that stout, like Ninja Turtle build. Just low center of gravity, strong lower half, very explosive from 0 to 10 yards. Like it kind of reminds me of him.
Emmitt Smith build too. Emmitt Smith had the same build.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I think we get enamored today because the Bama backs, the bigger 6'2", 240 back, 240-pound backs. That's great, but there's something about this low center of gravity that are still solid and thick when they hit the hole and with that explosiveness for sure.
Well, Rene, this has been good, man. I knew it was going to be good. I knew you're going to have some good stories. Tell the people where they can find you, if you're on socials, if you got any projects coming up, just advertise whatever you have going on.
Yeah, so you see my name. It's pretty, there's not another name out there. So I'm on X at Rene Ingoglia and Instagram at Rene Ingoglia. Those are the two biggest ones. I mean, I'm on Facebook too, but as far as like my sports world and, what I'm doing in my schedule, those are the two things. And then, this podcast space is huge, Preston. You're killing it here. So I was approached by a company that wanted to do a podcast for UMass football called Minuteman Command. Yeah. And they're going to kind of do everything UMass football and basketball as UMass transitions into the MAC conference this year. So me and Mike Corey, who's an ESPN personality that happens to be a UMass grad, we're kind of giving back. So we do a weekly podcast for UMass called The Flagship because the University of Massachusetts is the flagship university for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it drops every Wednesday. And we get on there and whatever's going on with UMass, and then we talk about national stuff as well and some funny stories. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. So Flagship Pod, Minuteman Command, and then on X, my name, and Instagram. And I just can't wait for football season. I'm a junkie, and so I'm waiting.
Well, my man, till next time.
Thanks, Preston. Great meeting you, buddy.
Absolutely.